Thank you very much for coming along. This session is going to be taking us a little bit outside of Asia and talking about farm animal advocacy in South America and in Europe. And we've got two excellent speakers here, one from Thailand and from India. If I introduce you both to start with, we have Wich is the Managing Director of Thailand Sinergia Animal, based in Bangkok, working to secure cage-free commitments from major companies in Thailand and also to promote plant-based diets. And Amruta is the Senior Director of Public Affairs for Animal Equality, working to secure corporate commitments and legislation to improve farmed animal welfare. So please join me in welcoming Amruta to the stage to give her speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. And a big thanks to the organizers for all their hard work. So many regions in the world have been eating meat through time immemorial. But over decades, the animal rights movement has been successfully challenging this very deep conditioning. These efforts have led to the invention of plant-based meat, dairy, and eggs, and it has caught on such momentum that the world leaders are supporting it. One of them even said, "Future of meat is vegan." And even brands which are into animal products are investing in plant-based or cellular meat products. Simultaneously, the movement has also fought against the cruelties inflicted on animals by the animal agriculture industry. Animal protection laws and policies are ending these age-old cruel practices and getting the industries to adopt meaningful animal protection measures. Both these initiatives have an end goal. One is to turn people vegan, and two, to end these cruel practices. These parallel efforts are getting all stakeholders to realize that the old models will be obsolete and redundant. Systemic change is created when all stakeholders are compelled to sit up, take notice, and adopt the change. Now let's get into these three stakeholder group of society, government, and companies. In our educational efforts, we make people aware of the cruelties inflicted on farmed animals and include a solution which is encouraging people to adopt a plant-based diet. We have a dedicated project called Love Veg, which focuses on everything related to plant-based food. In Italy, in 2022, Animal Equality published a Save a Lamb campaign during the Easter holiday, and this campaign comprised of two parts. One was a heartwarming video filmed at an animal sanctuary to encourage people to adopt a plant-based diet and show them how affectionate and sociable lambs are. Key Italian media, like the La Repubblica and HuffPost, covered this investigation, which exposed the abuse animals are subjected to during the transport. In April, we organized a large demonstration in Milan's Piazza Duomo to spread the message, "Animals Feel." We created awareness and distributed thousands of flyers inviting passerbys to try plant-based food. Meanwhile, we published a web page to share exclusive information about the dark side of factory farming and invited people to reduce or eliminate the consumption of animal products. This effort also included a new Love Veg cookbook with vegan recipes provided by chefs, influencers, and other plant-based cooking experts. In Spain, following an advertising campaign by the Central Lechera Asturiana, a Spanish dairy producer, we combated its "I Drink Milk" campaign slogan with a video exposing common and cruel dairy practices. As we called on supporters to choose plant-based alternatives, Love It Spain offered them an e-book titled My First Vegan Cheeses. Meanwhile, we also called the government to stop subsidizing the Spanish dairy industry and support plant-based alternatives to dairy instead. Let's now look at the second stakeholder group, which is the government. We work with the government to advance animal protection by ensuring that the existing laws and regulations are strictly followed. And in cases where good animal protection laws are lacking, we make sure that we introduce proposals which will introduce meaningful animal welfare laws. In Brazil, the EU-Mercosur Free Trade Agreement was signed in 2019, but it's not been implemented. The content of the agreement states that it will increase the beef and poultry exports exponentially because of the reduction of tariffs and increase of quota. Animal equality, with the support of Eurogroup for Animals, is leading stakeholders in Brazil and in Mercosur countries to press the EU Parliament and the European Commission with a couple of asks. The first ask is to include penalties in the additional protocol for countries that don't follow animal welfare norms, which are usually followed by EU. Second is requesting that the protocol contains the obligations to adopt mirror clauses, that Mercosur countries adopt legislation that reflects the same animal welfare standards adopted in Europe. As the Brazilian government gives slaughterhouses more power to regulate themselves under the self-control law, we exposed what happens inside illegal slaughterhouses. Undercover investigators documented animal abuse at the time of slaughter and sanitary violations that pose a public health risk. The images serve as a warning about the dangers of deregulation. Together with dozens of other organizations, we filed a lawsuit of unconstitutionality with the Federal Supreme Court to combat the self-control law. In Germany, we are urging the government to advocate at the European level for an end to force feeding in the European Union. The EU-wide ban on force feeding is not enough because 5 countries circumvent the ban. Depending on the estimate, between 10 to 70 million ducks and geese are force-fed per year in the EU. We demand a maximum weight of marketed foie gras. This is because the foie gras industry's profit maximization works by maximizing the weight of the livers of ducks and geese through force feeding. An effective prevention of this maximization would make force feeding uneconomical and thus effectively means that it will end. We also launched a campaign to reduce chick suffering. An alternative to killing male chicks is in oversexing. It allows the sorting of eggs as per gender. German law will soon forbid sorting out eggs not later than 7 days of incubation. So far, oversexing works from day 9. Oversexing effectively prevents chick suffering, as it could spare up to 42 million chicks per year from being born on factory farms. The accompanying petition of our campaign demands to allow eggs to be sorted out not later than day 7. In Italy, in 2020, Animal Equality launched the Stop the Slaughter of Male Chicks campaign, supported by more than 110,000 people. As a result, a historic vote in 2022 has ended the selective slaughter of male chicks in Italy. By 2026, the Italian government will have to introduce measures to ban the egg industry's systematic killing of chicks who are considered of no use since they can't lay eggs or they can't be used for meat. Between 25 to 40 million chicks will be spared annually because of these efforts. Since Italy was among the countries supporting live animal transport during the last European Union Agri-Fish Council, we posed a parliamentary question to the Italian minister about the issue. Although he answered that the country already has enough controls on animal transport, he acknowledged that the importance of the topic. This opens the door to further have dialogues with the authorities, advancing our efforts to finally ban animal transport. Animal Equality also filed 2 complaints with the Public Prosecutor's Office of Cremona against the people responsible for mistreating animals at the Zima slaughterhouse. The investigation video that we released in 2021 clearly showed workers and owners of the company beating pigs with sticks and shovels, slamming a pig against the wall, and ineffectively stunning them before slaughter, leaving them still conscious. The court of Cremona required the owner of the company to perform public service and mandated that he would have to pay an economic compensation to Animal Equality and other animal protection organizations. We investigated 7 foie gras farms in Spain, including the farm of the then president of the foie gras industry. And we launched a campaign. As a result, one of the farms closed, and we, along with 80,000 signees of our petition, are now calling on the government to ban force feeding, a cruel practice that 1 million ducks and geese are subjected to every year. In 2023, with Stop Cages slogan displayed, animal equality volunteers protested before the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food in Spain. Spain is the European Union country with the highest number of caged animals on farms, caging a total of 86 million. We delivered a letter to the Minister of Agriculture demanding a concrete plan to eliminate cages following the European Union's promise to prohibit their use by 2027. Animal Equality's investigators collected evidence at a fast-growing chicken farm in Italy. We then petitioned the Italian government to ban the breeding of fast-growing chickens. We have also presented the plight of chickens during a debate in the Petitions Committee to the European Parliament. In May 2023, the Commission left our petition open, making a ban on fast-growing chickens breeding possible. The European Union Commission admitted that breeding fast-growing chickens is problematic and will evaluate the practice in its 2023 review of farmed animal welfare legislation. This is in response to the 27 complaints we filed against all the European member states, stating that the fast-growing chicken farming is in conflict with the EU animal welfare laws. Our complaint argues that this genetic selection has disastrous repercussions on their quality of life. Animal Equality in Germany, Italy, and Spain is a part of the Euro for Animals campaign, calling for the appointment of European Commissioner for Animal Welfare. This appointment would ensure a permanent person in the EU Commission for issues related to animal protection that would be responsible for acting on violations. 181 members of the European Parliament from different countries and political groups support the demand, with over 215,000 European citizens have already signed the petition for the Euro for Animals campaign. Now let's shift focus to the third stakeholder group, which is the food companies. These corporations, large and small, have the power to improve the lives of millions of animals with just one policy reform. In Brazil, every year, around 84 million chicks are culled without stunning. Animal Equality in Brazil is working in 2 programs to spare them of this cruel practice. The first part is where the Legal Advocacy Initiative is working with the government to implement in-oversexing technologies in Brazil. The second part is to engage big egg producers and retailers to adopt in-oversexing policies, asking them to ban the vendors from their supply chain that do not adopt the technologies and that do not adopt the technologies that are able to identify the gender of the embryo before the 7th day of incubation. The date is chosen because there is a scientific consensus that until the 7th day, they are not able to feel pain. After negotiations with Animal Equality, Mantiqueira, a South America's largest egg producer, became the first Latin American company to commit to stop buying female chicks from hatcheries that kill male chicks. We are also working to introduce technologies in Brazil to identify the sex of the chick during the incubation period. Mantiqueira's commitment will spare 7 million male chicks a year. Following Mantiqueira's commitment, Animal Equality negotiated with 3 other companies that also committed to the same level, and this spares more than 500,000 chicks per year. After an 11th-month campaign led by Animal Equality, the Brazilian supermarket Supernosso finally committed to eliminating eggs from caged hens in its supply chain by 2028. As the first such commitment in Minas Gerais, it will impact around 300,000 hens yearly. In Brazil, more than 95% of hens are still in cages, making commitments like these very crucial. In Spain, Hevo Group has published that it's transitioned to cage-free by 45%, and by the end of the year, they are now at 30%. The agreement has been that they will publish the progress and before the end of the year, they will come to 100%. This strategy is about the importance of transition and roadmap. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, that's the only thing which has changed ever. This quote by Margaret Read has inspired me ever since I've started working in the field of animal rights. But today, more than ever, our numbers have increased and they will finally continue to do so. Our movement is getting prominent, resourceful, and strategic, among other things. I strongly believe that there will come a time in the future where we will look back in shock to learn that there was a point in the past where animals were abused and eaten. Until then, we work together and strong to make this a reality. Thank you.
All right. Okay, we are called Sinergia Animal for a reason. We were founded with the intention to build synergy with other groups within the movement and also outside the movement. We want to collaborate. And our leadership, especially Carolina, has always made it clear from the beginning and every day that we work that we have to collaborate with other organizations, even if they use different strategies or even if they have different values. Even if we have conflicts between us, we have to be able to look past the conflict and work together. And some may say that having one organization working in a country, it's already enough. But we don't think that's true at all. We can benefit a lot from having more than one organizations with different roles, different strategies, and programs. And values and visions of different organizations can be different. It might not be 100% aligned, but we can learn to respect these differences and let and learn not to let them be barrier between us. We are now arrived at the second part of our presentation. Now I am going to talk more about concrete examples of what makes our experience in Latin America and also in Thailand, Indonesia a little bit, an experience of many failures, but also challenges and many great successes. So let me use Brazil as a great example here that shows how powerful collaborations can be. Brazil already has more than 200 cage-free policies from major food corporations, and accounts to more than a half of all policies in Latin America. And according to the estimates done by Mercy for Animals, if all these commitments are implemented, 50% of cage-free productions in Brazil will be cage-free. And this is possible, we believe, because in Brazil, there are 5 strong organizations working on the same issue. And the beginning was certainly not easy. There was certain level of tension and disagreement between the organizations working on the same issues. But they kept working together. And then the teams of different organizations start to meet, plans together, they select target companies together. And when times comes, they become friends, they feel more comfortable sharing information. And they have learned that working together will bring victories in a shorter time. So what is key here is that the groups meet and talk and plans together, and they become friends. And they learn that in order to achieve great things, they have to be able to work together. Okay, but at this point, some of you might think that it's hard and challenging to use pressure campaigns in Asia. It might be even impossible in many Asian countries due to restrictive legislations and cultural barriers. And that is true. I mean, I'm from Thailand and I share the pain and frustration. I experienced this firsthand. But there are ways we can use pressure while respecting local contexts and keeping ourselves safe. So for countries that cannot use direct pressure campaigns for companies, I would like to share a very good example from Brazil. So in Brazil, Sinergia Animals started running a yearly program called Pigs in Focus. So every year we update a website that ranks companies according to their pig welfare policies, such as policies to phase out gestation crates and mutilations, and to ban the non-therapeutic use of antibiotics. So we collect data from these companies, we rank these largest pig meat processing companies, and then we show which one are the best ones in terms of the policies that they have published. So category A, that you see on the slide, and which ones are the worst ones, which is category F. And after 2 years, we can say that we have seen major improvements from big companies like JBS and BRF. So for this report, so it's a Pigs in Focus report, we collected companies' data, we researched about their policies, we analyzed the data, and then we present this data to the public with our website and the ranking report. So we also share this report with the media, on our social media, and throughout the year, we keep reminding companies that we are collecting information and we would like to encourage them to do better than the last year. So when we publish this report, consumers can see that they have improved and they are in better ranks than their competitors. So this is not obvious pressure like going to the street and with signs and banners and campaigning, but it's mostly corporate engagement with a little bit of with a little bit of pressure, just very tiny bit of pressure, and public visibility once the ranking is done. And another way to use pressure is LinkedIn advertisement. So I think everyone here use LinkedIn, and you might have at some point received direct message that says sponsored, and that's what I'm talking about. We also use that tactic as well to put mild pressure on companies. So we launched LinkedIn ads. I'm sorry, Amanda. We launched LinkedIn ads targeting top decision makers and employees in companies by sending DM message like this, inviting them to report the progress of their companies. And for the cash-free tracker program in Asia, and our main argument is that companies should promote transparency and improve their public image with this cash-free report in Asia. And it's hard to say if the increase in reporting rate is from this LinkedIn ads alone. We believe that it contributes to the success. So we have observed that the increase in the participation rate from 2023 when compared to last year has improved a lot. So in the first year, which is last year of the tracking program, we got 8 companies to report progress specifically for Asia. But this year, and this information is not public yet, by the way, this year we have 21 companies reporting specific progress from Asia, which is 162.5% increase from last year. And when the tracker report is released this year, it's going to be released soon, we will compare and rank companies to instigate competitions between them so that they want to improve their progress to be better perceived by consumers. The report this year, when it is released, we are planning again to use LinkedIn direct message ads and also feed ads like this to encourage employees and top decision makers to check their progress in the report. So then here again, it's like an example of pigs in focus in Brazil. It's not public pressure or not very obvious street action. We are using corporate engagement tools that can make companies want to compete. And companies love competition. And this can bring a lot of progress to animals without major risk of lawsuit on our organizations as well. And the last major success from Latin America that I would like to share with you today, and I believe that it could be successful in Asia as well, it's institutional meat reduction programs. So Sinergia was inspired by the Brazilian Vegetarian Society, which runs the most successful Meatless Monday campaign in the world. So now we are running the meat reduction program in 4 countries: Argentina, Colombia, Indonesia, and Thailand. So we engage with big institutions and ask them to only serve one plant-based meal a week. And since we have started this program, we have, in 4 countries, we have more than 100 institutions committing to serving one plant-based meal a week, accounting to more than 4 million plant-based meals per year. Like, those are the meals that will be served without any animal products. And we don't use pressure at all. We engage with these institutions and we convince them by talking about the benefits to the environment and to human health. We also offer them free support and trainings with workshops and chefs and nutritionists to implement the program. So the final message for today is that with the right mindset and adequate strategies, we can make a lot of things happen, even though a lot of people will say that it is impossible. We are hopeful that we can secure many wins that will make all of us proud to be a part of this movement in Asia from its early days. And Sinergia, we would like to collaborate. And if you would like to learn more about any of these initiatives and how we run them, and you would like to speak with us in details, in small details about what made these programs successful, feel free to reach out to me. I will be hovering around the event. And thank you so much for your attention and for coming to this room.
Thank you very much, Wich, and some really great examples of the work that Sinergia Animal have been doing both in South America and in Asia. And I could just say both of our speakers have had to stand in for other speakers that were hoping to come and give a talk here today. And I think another round of applause for an amazing job, because neither of you actually work in some of the areas that you've been talking about. And both of you have absolutely excelled in terms of putting your case forward with what your organisations are doing. So thank you very much. Right, we have some questions, and so I'll invite both speakers back up to the front. We have one particular question that has quite a lot of votes. So if I can put this to both of you. This is, how do you respond when people say that Latin America and Asia is not ready for these issues, and there are so many human-related issues to deal with? Which would you like to? Or?
I'll go.
Okay.
I think it's a very interesting question, and it's a thought which I've pondered on for a very, very, very long time, coming from a place like India, which very obviously struggles with a lot of human welfare and human rights issues. And it dawned upon me even more when we worked on this Gadimai campaign, the Gadimai animal sacrifice, which happens in Nepal. It is one of the most downtrodden areas which I have personally worked in. And it was an epiphany of sorts for me when I worked over there. And when I saw like absolutely the most basic human rights which were violated, and I thought to myself, like, how do you speak to these people about animal rights? Like, just how? And I think it's very important when you're faced with this kind of situation to not look at that specific angle. I think whenever we are working on a social cause, I don't think we can afford to isolate ourselves with just one angle. There are different angles to this, and especially organizations and activists like us, we are actually focusing on different areas. So when it comes to people struggling with human rights, and when people come up with that excuse, I think it's important to also focus on other areas, which is basically, say, the lobbying work with the government, or approaching the courts, or approaching food companies for certain reforms. So I think our focus should be more on these areas, and as we gain momentum over there, of course, I think most of the people are also involved in educational activities, and the main objective of educational activities is to make people aware. I know it is a challenge when you're dealing with a demographic like this who are struggling with their own rights and welfare, but I think, again, we are dealing with a mix of people. Like, when I say that, I'm talking from my experience in India, and we are dealing with cities which are developed, we are dealing with middle class. So we focus our educational effort more on that demographic, and that combined with the other areas of work, like the government outreach, the company outreach, I think you are then able to develop a momentum and address it.
Thank you, Amruta. And Wich?
Okay. So I would say that, okay, I would reply that there have not been a point in the past history where there were only only one fight for social justice happened, like only one happened at a time. There have always been multiple causes to fight for, and there were always so many people and so many groups fighting for different social justice issues at the same time. So why wait? We cannot wait for one cause to accomplish first to start another. In fact, we do not have to. A lot of fights, a lot of struggle can happen at the same time. And if we have to wait, so I would ask, I would turn this into a question and ask them, so when this can happen? There are millions of lives of animals that are at stake right now. They cannot afford to wait. When can we start fighting for this if we have to wait? So that would be my answer.
Thank you very much, Wich and Amruta. The second and the third question on the app actually are very similar. They are, how do we stop governments from subsidising intensive farming activities using public money? And the question, one of which is also directly to you, Amruta, if you want to give examples from India, but also which if you want to give examples from Thailand as well.
Another very interesting question. I think when it comes to subsidies, again, my approach would be similar to the previous question, where you also focus on subsidies for, say, plant-based production. So there have been instances in the past where we have approached the government with proposals to subsidize farmers who are into, say, plant-based dairy production. So I think that is another very important angle. To tackle the subject of getting rid of subsidies for, say, meat production or any other sector of the animal agriculture industry, it is a very, very, very challenging job. I think one stepping stone to getting closer to that result would be filing petitions in different high courts or the Supreme Courts of the country, getting a lot of media attention on the issue. I think also public outrage is very, very important in this whole mix of strategies. So I think a combination of all of these would definitely create a momentum. And I always say that we need to also focus on momentum. The ultimate objective would be achieved in due course of time, but I think building momentum through media, through approaching the courts, and through public outreach will be very crucial in this aspect.
Thank you, Amruta. And Rich?
I think Amruta covered most of the things. And in Thailand and Indonesia, we have not started working on this. So I wish I have the answer for this question, right? But if we are going to start at all, I think we have to start with intensive research about how legislation works in Thailand and whether how much money does the government actually put into subsidiary of companies. And we also need to learn how strong private sectors are, because for example in Thailand, I can speak for Thailand, that private companies usually have much more power than the government, and they are the people who use the power to get the government to subsidize them. So if we are going to start this work in Thailand at all, we are going to start from doing a very intensive research on that.
Thank you, Wich. And if anybody's interested, there is an initiative called the Stop Financing Factory Farming Initiative, which is looking at the international and the public banks' funding of factory farming. So if you look that up online, then you can help and you can join that initiative to support the prevention of factory farming being funded through public banks.
Thank you, Dave. Actually, you were going to move on to the next question, but I would like to add that,
Sure.
That's our initiative. So thank you so much for bringing that up.
There we go.
It's a coalition work, so we partner with a lot of other organizations working on this. So what we do is we ask major development banks to stop funding factory farming and stop giving loans to factory farmings, because if we think about it, how do these industries continue to exist, right? Because money is coming in, so we ask the development bank to stop doing that. And we also engage with commercial banks as well to ask them to have policies to stop investing or giving loans to farms that are that use extreme confinement like battery cages. So we hope that even though we cannot stop the government from subsidizing factory farming yet, at least we can prevent like a lot of money from going into that industry by working with the major development banks and commercial banks.
Thank you, Rich. Okay, the next question, I think is probably more directly to you, which it says, why did you decide to put pressure on companies instead of pushing for legislation to ban cages?
I think Amruta might want to add later on, but we have observed that pushing for companies to change brings in faster results and is actually easier to put pressure on companies rather than push for legislations. I mean, it is effective to push for legislation, but it takes a long time, a lot of resources, and a lot of knowledge. And actually, it can negatively impact producers and small farmers if we try to push for legislations to ban cages, for example, without trying to improve the market or without trying to create the market for higher welfare products first. So in the Global South especially, this is why we have decided to start pushing for policies from companies instead of pushing for legislations.
Thank you, Wich. Amruta, do you want to add anything to that? I know that animal equality you presented on both of those issues, but if there is anything that you want to add.
Yeah. I think, again, it's not an either or approach. Both are needed and both are complementary. I think you really focused on that one point. Like, eventually, when the legislation does come into the picture, implementation is another humongous task which comes into place. And then working with the companies and the producers is so very crucial. So I don't think it's either or approach. I think both are required. And if an organization or activist chooses to focus on one, I think it's still all right because the other areas are covered by other organizations and activists.
Thank you, Amruta. This is an interesting question. Do you have any experience of a company which has raised a legal dispute with you directly, presumably through your campaigning?
I can share from Latin America, but I might not be able to name companies or speak in specific details, but I have heard of something. Yes, it has happened. A lawsuit has happened before from like one of the biggest pig processor in Brazil, if not mistaken. But before we took any actions, we always consult with the local lawyer. So everything we did was according to the law, and there wasn't just enough like cases for the lawsuit to move forward. So eventually the case was dropped. And in Thailand, we have not faced the legal threat yet. We have some company mentioning that they would like to move forward with the lawsuit, but it has never actually happened.
Okay, thank you. And the last question that I've got on here is, how do you keep volunteers, activists, but presumably yourselves as well, motivated and prevent yourselves and volunteers and activists from burnout with the work that you do, particularly in the particular areas that you work in?
I think I strongly feel the kind of environment which we work in is very challenging. And it's challenging for many reasons because I think most of us are empathetic people. And to come across these kind of situations on daily basis where the success rate comparatively is lesser in comparison to the efforts which you put in, and it takes a little longer compared to other different social causes. So given this kind of scenario, I think it's very daunting to work in this field. For me personally, I can say what has worked is not losing sight of the objective. Also, I think there's a lot of frustration which comes in because of all these challenges which you meet on daily basis. And I think taking that frustration and channelizing that frustration into motivation, into a quest for coming up with solutions to the challenges which you are facing. I think that is very, very, very primal and very, very important to be sustainable over a period of time.
Thank you.
So I think first we have to acknowledge that volunteers are individuals and they have their own unique challenges. They have personal issues that they might not share with us, so we cannot possibly prevent burnout from volunteers. What we can do is frequently share small victories with them, emphasize how important they are to the movement, especially like when it's in our early days, and build a strong community where everyone support each other to get through the hardest time. So that's for volunteers. And I think there are a lot of resources out there already to help us with mental health and prevent burnout. So I think everyone are encouraged to kind of like seek out this resource and find a way that works best for them.
Thank you, Wich. And if you don't mind, then I'd just like to add to that as well, because it's something which I've been working in this field for over 20 years. And the early part of my work was very much involved in investigations and obviously seeing a lot of animal suffering. And I found actually that what helped me was to actually start talking about some of the positives about animals. So a lot of the things that I talk about now are about the emotional experiences of animals, cognitive abilities of animals. And once you sort of engage in that side of thing and start to raise awareness of that, then it does lift you up. It does give you that sort of, that little bit of positivity within your daily work, where you're not always talking about the negatives. So that's also something I think which is important, because it's something that, you guys are absolutely crucial to this movement. The volunteers are, the activists are. We need you to be able to see this out in the long term. And I think also, being here at events like this and just meeting with people and having these collaborations and networking also helps as well. So thank you very much. We have come to the end of the session. Just again, if I could ask you to give a round of applause for our speakers. Both of which have given us some really good examples from both South America, but also from your own experiences in Asia. Thank you very much indeed.